Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. And of course, Monday Night Raw was from the Amway Center in Orlando. And Monday Night Raw tonight, I gotta say, it was a solid show, in my opinion. Wasn't bad, wasn't terrible. It was solid, in my opinion. Now, it doesn't make it a great show by any means tonight, though. But I wasn't bored by Raw tonight. But we had a triple threat qualifying matches, and then we had the triple threat match. For the winner of that match will be the number one contender to face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions. And the outcome of the match, which I'll get to, it was predictable. But if you guys haven't checked out my previous video that I uploaded earlier today, I unboxed the DC Fandom, the Batman t-shirt for the film, The Batman, which is coming out next year, which I'm really looking forward to that film next year. And so go check out that video if you haven't seen it earlier. And we had some news that broke out today. Apparently, Brock Lesnar is a free agent. WWE ended up taking off his page and his merchandise. So that news broke out today. Where will he go? Probably back to UFC. And then on the sad news, Mauro Ranallo, commentator on NXT, one of my favorite NXT commentators. Apparently, he is no longer with WWE. He issued a statement on his Twitter, and he is not going to be part of the NXT commentary team anymore. And with that, who knows? He could possibly end up in AEW. But very sad to see Mauro Ranallo no longer with WWE and no longer with NXT anymore. But at least we got Wade Barrett back on the NXT commentary team. So it's good to see Wade Barrett back, in WWE on the NXT commentary team. But let's jump right into the Raw review. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Randy Orton. Randy Orton ended up coming out, and he ended up saying on how he hurt Drew McIntyre last week because he suffered it. Orton went on about how he should not have to face Kevin Owens to qualify for the triple threat match, and that he should just get the shot at the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions against Drew McIntyre. And he ended up saying that's okay because he will go on to Clash of Champions and will win the WWE Championship. Oh, and during this, we had Randy Orton show like on the screen of all the guys that he attacked. So we saw like Edge and Christian, Ric Flair. They were all in hospital beds. Shawn Michaels and Drew McIntyre. They were all in hospital beds, and Randy Orton was like laughing. So that was shown. So out came Keith Lee. Keith Lee made his way out with that awful, shitty music that WWE gave him. Second week, Keith Lee made his way out. The theme music is still fucking awful. Absolute shit. I mean, what was wrong with the music that he had in NXT? But no, Vince wants to change everything. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So Keith Lee made his way out. Keith Lee ended up taunting Randy Orton, which Keith Lee ended up defeating Randy Orton last night at Payback. So Keith Lee ended up taunting Orton. He ended up saying that he's doing his best to forget what happened at Payback last night. And Keith Lee ended up saying that he gave Randy Orton the chance to bask in his glory. And he ended up saying, oh, Orton is complaining about a title shot that he thinks should be handed to him. So Keith Lee ended up saying, well, Mr. Orton, things are a little bit different now. He ended up saying because maybe, just maybe, a victory like his last night means that maybe that he should get the opportunity, that Keith Lee should get the opportunity at the WWE Championship. So Keith Lee ended up saying, don't get him wrong. He's known Drew McIntyre for some time, and he considers McIntyre a good friend. He ended up saying that McIntyre likes to talk about receipts, and Keith Lee believes, without a shadow of doubt, that McIntyre will make good on his word at some point. So then Dolph Ziggler comes out and attacks Keith Lee from behind. Ziggler ended up dropping Keith Lee with a big DDT, and then Monday Night Raw went to commercial, and that was that. And then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had Keith Lee versus Dolph Ziggler. Keith Lee ended up winning. This was a triple threat qualifying match. So Keith Lee ended up defeating Dolph Ziggler. He ended up hitting the Spirit Bomb to Dolph Ziggler. And there you go. Keith Lee ended up winning the match. He takes his place in the triple threat match. That happened later on in the night. But overall, it was a short match. And then we saw Sarah Schreiber. Sarah Schreiber was backstage with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, the new Women's Tag Team Champions. And Sarah Schreiber ended up asking how Baszler and Jax were able to put their differences aside. Nia Jax ended up telling Sarah Schreiber that she told Shayna Baszler to follow her lead. And Baszler ended up disagreeing. And she ended up saying that she told Nia Jax to stay out of her way. And she ended up doing that, allowing her to connect the submission. So they were arguing over, who made the win happen at Payback. Nia Jax ended up saying that she sees it like she's the tag team champion. And Shayna Baszler is just holding the other belt. So and then we had Asuka end up walking up. Sarah Schreiber asked Asuka if she got an answer on her next challenger. And she didn't. So Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler say to Asuka that this is their interview. And just because Asuka is the Raw Women's Champion, it doesn't mean she can interrupt. So Asuka ended up shoving Shayna Baszler. Nia Jax ended up stepping up to Asuka. Nia Jax ended up staring Asuka down. And then Asuka starts yelling at Japanese to Nia Jax. And then she walked off. And that was that. And then we had Adam Pearce. WWE producer Adam Pearce was backstage with security guards. He was saying to these guards about how Retribution ruined the main event of Monday Night Raw last week and that it won't happen again this week. And he said that security is going to do their jobs. He ended up telling them if that does happen again if Retribution screws up the main event, then the company, then WWE will hire some people to work security who can do their jobs. So yeah, Adam Pearce got more TV time. It's like we haven't seen a lot of him since SmackDown on Friday, where that show basically revolved around him getting the contract signed by Braun Strowman and The Fiend Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns for their match at Payback that we saw. And then Charlie Caruso was in the ring. She ended up introducing Asuka. Asuka made her way down to the ring, dancing as always. She was doing like the Teddy Long, where it's like. So then Asuka got in the ring. Charlie Caruso ended up saying that Asuka has been demanding a new challenger. She ended up asking if she can think of anyone who is deserving to fight her for the Raw Women's Championship. Asuka ended up laughing. She spoke in Japanese. And then she named some of the people that, some of the women that she defeated. Becky Lynch, Sasha, among many others. She ended up saying that it doesn't matter who is ready for her, because she is ready for anything. So then Mickie James ended up coming out. And today was Mickie James's birthday. She ended up turning 41 today. So happy birthday to Mickie James. So Mickie ends up saying that she recognizes greatness when she sees it, and that Asuka is probably one of the greatest women's champions of all time. So Mickie ended up saying that, out of respect, that Asuka should be the first to know that she is going to be coming for the championship. And then out came Natalya and Lana. This whole segment was a waste of time. Natalya ended up saying that Mickie really thinks she can come back and jump the line to demand a title shot. Natalya ended up calling Mickie James selfish, and Lana ended up telling Mickie James that she's delusional. And then Lana ends up knocking Mickie for failing to evolve and having the same gear since the 90s. Lana ended up saying that Natalya aligned with her because she's a trendsetter. Of course, we see Lana and Natalya on social media. They're making TikTok videos. So Lana ended up saying that she is Natalya's best friend. And to get to her, Mickie has to go through her. So Lana and Mickie start arguing. Asuka end up interrupting. And Asuka end up saying, "Oh, I'm ready for you, and for you." So she was pointing at Natalya, Mickie James, and Lana. So Lana and Natalya end up attacking Mickie James and Asuka. Asuka end up sending Natalya out of the ring. Mickie ended up brawling with Lana, sent Lana out to the ring apron. So Asuka ended up following up, knocked Lana to the floor with a hip attack, and that was that. This segment was a waste of time. Absolute waste of time. Then we went to Mickie James versus Lana. Garbage. Mickie James ended up winning the match, delivered the mid kick to Lana. That was that. Moving on. Sarah Schreiber was backstage. She was in the ring with the IICONICS, Payverse and Billie Kay. And she was asking about possibly having to disband, about them having to possibly disband break up after being best friends for years, long before their careers began. So they end up saying that they will take the tag team titles and keep them as best friends. So we saw earlier in the night the IICONICS, Payne Royce and Billie Kay, were taking on Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan in a loser disbands tag team match where the loser has to disband. So it was pretty obvious from that little segment with Sarah Schreiber and the IICONICS. It was pretty obvious who was going to disband, because it showed a picture of the IICONICS when they started in WWE. So you could tell right there who was going to disband. So then we had Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. This was for a triple threat qualifying match. And Randy Orton made his way out. And then Kevin Owens made his way out. And when Kevin Owens made his way out, Aleister Black ended up attacking Kevin Owens at ringside. And Aleister Black ended up hitting the Black Mass to Kevin Owens. Aleister Black ended up rolling Kevin Owens into the ring. The referee was checking on Kevin Owens. And the ref was trying to stop Kevin Owens from going into this match because of him getting attacked from Aleister Black. And then Kevin Owens was like, I'll go on. Ring the bell. So the ref ends up ringing the bell. Kevin Owens couldn't even get to his feet. And Orton ended up delivering a RKO to Kevin Owens. Went for the pin. There you go. Randy Orton won the match. Randy Orton qualifies for the triple threat match later on in the night. So we had Keith Lee and now Randy Orton. And that was that, but quick match. Match probably lasted like 3 minutes. So then Charlie Caruso was interviewing Rey Mysterio backstage, and he had his whole family there. Dominik, his daughter, Rey's daughter, and his wife. So the whole Mysterio family was there. So Rey ended up talking about, his injuries happening in the business. And he ended up saying that if there is one person on earth he wants to take place, it's Dominik. So he ended up saying that Dominik knows he's the underdog after the win at Payback. And that his confidence is on another level. So Dominik ended up saying that tonight he's got a 619 with the Monday Night Messiah written all over it. So the Mysterio family ended up hugging, and Monday Night Raw went to commercial. So it was originally supposed to be Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio. But after last night, Rey Mysterio is injured. I think he has torn triceps, according to an article. So Rey Mysterio is out. And because of that, he couldn't compete against Seth Rollins tonight. So they put in his son Dominik to take on Seth Rollins. So Rey's going to be out. And then we went to the VIP lounge. MVP and Shelton Benjamin were out. And they end up introducing Bobby Lashley, who is the new United States champion. So Bobby Lashley made his way out. MVP ended up getting on the mic. He ended up addressing Apollo Crews. And Bobby Lashley ends up talking about how he said exactly what he was going to do to Apollo Crews at Payback. He ended up saying that Apollo Crews tried to get some payback during this celebration. And that he's not mad because he would have done the same thing. So he ended up saying for that, Bobby Lashley promised that he will get Apollo Crews back. So Shelton Benjamin ended up saying that since Apollo Crews wants to act like a little punk, he's going to get beat like a little punk in Raw Underground. Oh, I'm sorry, Raw Failure Ground later on in the night. So MVP ended up promising that the Hurt Business is not done with Apollo Crews, and that they're going to focus on the 6-man tag tonight. He ended up saying that they walked into Raw Failure Ground last week and everyone was standing, but they weren't at the end. So then out came Cedric Alexander. And we had the Hurt Business end up getting out of the ring as Cedric Alexander walked down the ramp. MVP ended up holding back Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. MVP then approached Cedric and asked if he's had a change of heart since he's out all alone. Ricochet wasn't out there. So Cedric ended up saying, hell no, he hasn't had a change of heart. And he's not out here alone. So we had Eric and Ivar, the Viking Raiders, attacked the Hurt Business from behind. The Hurt Business got laid out on the floor. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. So that was that. But overall, this segment was very in my opinion. Then we have Cedric Alexander and the Viking Raiders versus the Hurt Business. This was a pretty decent match in my opinion. And it was a 6-man tag. We had Cedric Alexander and the Viking Raiders end up winning the match. Where Cedric ended up rolling up MVP for the win. So Cedric Alexander and the Viking Raiders end up winning. Post-match, we had MVP was shown smiling at Cedric Alexander. And he ended up standing with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. So that was basically that. Overall, decent match. Then after that, we saw the Hurt Business backstage. They were stomping away on Cedric Alexander. Apollo Crews and Ricochet end up showing up. And the Hurt Business ended up talking trash to Cedric Alexander. And they backed away. And that was basically that. And then we had the IICONICS versus the Riott Squad of Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan. No one contenders match. The loser must disband. I mean, this whole gimmick of the losers must disband, it's pretty stupid when you think about it. So we had the winners of the match get to become the number one contenders to face Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And the loser must disband. So with this match, it was just very, in my opinion. We had the Riott Squad, Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott, end up winning the match, where Ruby Riott was doing a lot of pin attempts on Billie Kay. And Ruby Riott ended up getting the win, rolled up Billie Kay. And there you go. The Riott Squad, Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan win. They are the number one contenders to face Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the Women's Tag Team Championships. And the IICONICS then disbanded. Post-match, the IICONICS, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, ended up throwing a fit in the ring. They were screaming and begging the referee. And I'm like, This was so bad, it was hilarious. This reminded me of that time when they got eliminated from that women's match that happened on Monday Night Raw, where it was a WWE.com exclusive, where it was on WWE.com and YouTube, where they were throwing a fit because they got eliminated, and they weren't the women's tag team champions again, and they were arguing with the referee, throwing a hissy fit outside the ring, where Billie Kay was like, "Give me the champion, give me the championships." And then you had Peyton Royce jumping up and down, throwing a hissy fit. That moment reminded me of what happened here tonight. So Peyton Royce and Billie Kay cry in the middle of the ring. This was so bad, it was hilarious. But overall, the match itself was just meh, in my opinion. At least Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan are the number one contenders. At least they're giving Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan a shot. And Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler. And then we had Seth Rollins versus Dominik Mysterio in a triple threat qualifying match. And this was a good match. This was a really enjoyable match between Seth Rollins and Dominik. Dominik continues to impress more and more in the ring. Before the match got underway, we had Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy in the ring. Seth Rollins was on the mic. He was staring at Buddy Murphy. He ended up yelling at him, saying Buddy Murphy ended up kicking him in the head last night at Payback and forced him to get pinned by Dominik. Rollins then ended up circling Buddy Murphy, and he ended up telling him, with a shot at the WWE Championship on the line, he cannot have any mistakes or have Buddy Murphy screwing it up for him. So Rollins ended up telling Buddy Murphy to get the hell out of his ring. Murphy ended up looking at him. Rollins then repeated himself to Buddy Murphy, telling him to get out of his sight, and that he doesn't want to see or hear Buddy Murphy until he figures out what kind of man he wants to be, and what kind of man he stands for, and what side of history he wants to be on. Buddy Murphy tried to speak to Rollins. Rollins ended up telling him to shut his mouth because Murphy disgraces him. So Rollins ended up yelling at him again to get out of the ring. Murphy slowly then walked. Rollins ended up slapping him across the back of his head. And Murphy ended up walking up the ramp. Murphy then stopped and turned around on the stage. And then Dominik ended up coming from behind, took out Buddy Murphy. Dominik then rushed to the ring. The match got underway. Dominik ended up tackling Seth Rollins. And the match went from there. It was back and forth between them. Good action, good wrestling here from Seth Rollins and Dominik. We had a point in the match where Dominik ended up doing the 619 to Seth Rollins. Dominik went to the top and he delivered the frog splash, but Rollins moved out of the way. Rollins then got right back up and hit the stomp to Dominik. Rollins then went for the cover. There you go. Seth Rollins ended up winning the match. He gets the last shot in the triple threat match. So there you go. We have our triple threat match set up for later on in the night. Keith Lee versus Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins. Winner gets to face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions. And post-match, we had Rollins going to leave the ring, and he ends up coming back in. He delivers another stomp to Dominik, and that was basically that. But overall, very good match from Seth Rollins and Dominik. Dominik, like I said, continues to impress in the ring. And then we had Raw Failure Ground. Titus O'Neil was in the ring. And then Titus ended up getting the win with this guy. Riddick Moss ended up stepping up, took out, this guy. Moss ended up taking Titus down. And that was that. So don't even give a shit for Raw Failure Ground. Why is this still a thing? Why is Raw Failure Ground still a thing? So then we had Shane end up saying that we will see the debut of Jessamyn Duke from NXT later on. And then after that, we saw the Street Profits backstage. Angelo Dawkins ended up uncovering a whiteboard, and it said Coach Dawkins' scouting report. And the report was on Andrade, Angel Garza, and Zelina Vega. So they end up taking shots at Andrade, Garza, and Zelina Vega. They end up saying that Zelina Vega is short, and they put like amusement park underneath her, and that she's small to ride the big rides. But that was what the Street Profits did. And then we went to video that happened earlier, where we saw Akira Tozawa and his Foot Clan arriving to the Amway Center earlier. Their van that they were driving ended up stopping at security. Security guy ended up saying that they're not on the list. So Akira Tozawa was like, "Oh, I'm Akira Tozawa, and these are my ninjas." Or I should say, I'm Akira Tozawa, and this is my Foot Clan. So Tozawa ended up getting out of the van. He ends up checking the list, and it's blank. And this guard ends up, shrugging his shoulders like, "What are you talking about?" So then we see R-Truth ends up appearing. He ends up rolling Tozawa up. And by the way, Akira Tozawa ended up unzipping the guard's jackets, and it was revealed to be a referee. So that's when R-Truth ended up appearing, rolled up Tozawa to capture the Jabba Ninja Turtle 24/7 title. And R-Truth ended up running away. Tozawa ended up hopping back in the van. And he ended up throwing the referee into the van. And he ended up leaving one of his ninjas behind, because R-Truth ended up taking out one of the ninjas. Awful. God awful. I'm tired of seeing this stupid 24/7 shit. So then we had the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza in a tornado tag team match. And this was a pretty decent match. Very back and forth action between them. And the match ended in a no contest because we had Montez Ford delivered a blockbuster and a enziguri to Andrade. Ford ended up shaking the ring ropes as usual, as what he does when he's hyped up. And the lights started flickering in the arena. And Garza ended up taking Debbie Burnett, which I don't know why she's still here. So Garza ended up taking Debbie Burnett. They run away, And then we see Retribution storms through the ringside area, and we have Montez Ford, Andrade, and Angelo Dawkins in the ring. They were surrounded by Retribution. So we had, I guess, the male members of Retribution attack Ford, Andrade, and Dawkins. The female members were on the outside. They surround Zelina Vega, and they beat down on Zelina Vega on the outside. They throw Zelina Vega into the barricade. And so, after they're done beating the hell out of these guys, Retribution end up all running away to the back. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. So there you go. Retribution appeared tonight on Monday Night Raw. They were missing, from what I heard last night, on Payback. They didn't even show up at Payback. And then when we came back, when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Adam Pearce was backstage yelling at the guards about why they didn't do anything with Retribution coming in. So, you saw that. Back to Raw Failure Ground. Jessamine Duke was there. Ended up taking on this woman. And then Marina Shafir was involved. And we had the IICONICS there. Peyton Royce ended up rolling Billie Kay into the ring. And we had Jessamine Duke drop Billie Kay. And Peyton Royce ended up cringing at ringside. So, who cares? So then we went to Cedric Alexander, Ricochet, and Apollo Crews. They were talking to each other backstage. Charlie Crews ended up approaching them, and she ended up bringing up how it's been a tough night for Cedric Alexander and his buddies. Apollo Crews ended up talking about how he's going to bounce back and not stop going at Bobby Lashley until he gets the United States Championship back. Ricochet ended up going on about how they have friendship, and that's something MVP doesn't have. And he ended up saying that he will fight for their friends. So they end up entering the Raw Failure Ground room. And then Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then, when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Raw Failure Ground once again. Apollo Crews versus Shelton Apollo Crews and Shelton Benjamin enter. Shelton Benjamin ended up slamming Apollo Crews. And I'm like, do I even have to go over this shit? Raw Failure Ground. So, but I'm tired of seeing Raw Failure Ground. I really am. This thing it's a failure. So then we saw Angel Garza was backstage with Demi Burnett. She was asking Angel Garza why he abandoned Zelina Vega and Andrade. Angel Garza ended up telling Burnett that he didn't abandon them. He ended up saying that if anything ever happens to Demi, he won't be able to take it. So we had Retribution coming through doors, and they were beating up security guards. So they stop and stare at Garza and Burnett. Garza took off running. He left Demi behind. So Demi ended up running away as Retribution ended up approaching her. And that was that. Main event. The triple threat match, number one contenders match on who is going to face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions. Randy Orton versus Keith Lee versus Seth Rollins. Good match. Good triple threat match, in my opinion. And we had at the beginning of the match, Orton went out to the floor. He had a few words with Seth Rollins. And they thought, And Seth Rollins thought that him and Orton were going to work together and take out Keith Lee. We had Rollins beating Keith Lee down. Him and Randy Orton were vying to take out Keith Lee, the big man in the match. And from what I heard, Vince McMahon is high on Keith Lee. So let's see how long that will be until Vince finally gives up with Keith Lee, because we all know how Vince McMahon works. He's high up on somebody, and then he just completely gives up and forgets about them and ends their big push. That's Vince McMahon from time to time. But we had, at the end of the match, Keith Lee ended up catching Seth Rollins. He ended up delivering a spirit bomb to Rollins. Randy Orton ended up taking advantage in the match. He hit the RKO to Keith Lee. Orton ended up covering Keith Lee. And there you go. Randy Orton ended up winning the match. He's now the #1 contender to face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at Clash of Champions. And I'm like, predictable. Absolutely predictable. We all knew that Randy Orton was gonna get another shot at McIntyre. It's obvious. So there you go. We're gonna see Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre once again. But post-match, Tom Phillips on commentary ended up saying that if McIntyre is cleared, he will be defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton at Clash of Champions. And so that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Randy Orton won, predictable, but overall the match itself, it was a good match. It was a decent match. That was Monday Night Raw tonight. Anyways, that's it for the Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.